You are tuned in to the Monday Night Carlo Sports and Entertainment Sportscast. And now, without further ado, I give to you the one and only Carlo.
Hello everybody and welcome to Monday Night Carlo. This is Carl Leggett, your host. We are in store for a good night. This is the podcast brought to you via iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio as well. So it's going to be a good night. We've got a good guest on the line, but before we talk to him, let's just make sure that you know exactly where you can catch Monday Night Carlo every week. You can follow me on Twitter at MNC Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, Monday Night Carlo. But tonight, it's all about 80s. We're going back. We're going back to the future, ladies and gentlemen, because tonight we're talking to Craig Anderson, author, radio broadcaster, and owner of 80snostalgia.com. Craig, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm a bit tired, but other than that, really good.
So, just to lead us in, Craig, just tell us a bit about you and your story.
Oh, you mean 80s wise, or just in general now?
Yeah, tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and of course about your website.
Well, I'm Craig, 42. I've got a normal job where I do payroll things as an accountant, but outside of work, I run an 80s website called 80snostalgia.com. I run a second website called retrobunny.org, which just reads other sites and brings the best stories back from their content. I have a Twitter page, 2 Facebook accounts for 80s Nostalgia. Quite a lot of 80s things going on in my life, I think.
So I know there's a bit of backstory about the website and how the actual website itself came around that you wanted to discuss. So tell us about how that came about.
Yeah, I used to have a website called Toonlist. I still do, toonlist.co.uk.
Right.
It was a list of every cartoon that's been on TV in the UK. And it came about because me and my mate Phil, when I used to work back in 1998, decided to try and make a list of every cartoon we could think of, and it ended up becoming a website. So I wanted to have this website so it documented every cartoon, but also had a list of characters and maybe a synopsis, maybe like an episode guide, so you could look a bit encyclopedic in effect.
Yeah.
So I went on the internet, which is quite a new thing, in about the year 2000-ish, and I did a search for images relating to Bod or Bagpuss or something cartoon related.
Right.
Just to get some content for toonlist.co.uk. And I came across a website called 80snostalgia.com that I went onto. It had pictures of Bagpuss, so I downloaded some pictures. Went back to Ask Jeeves or whatever, Alta Vista, whatever the search engine was back in 2000. And I did another search for another cartoon, Count Duckula, and this 80s Nostalgia site came up again. So I took more pictures, and I thought it's only polite to let this website owner know that I'm borrowing his pictures. So I sent an email to him saying, I'm taking some of your pictures, is it all right? They're going to go on my website. And he wrote back, emailed back the day after, and said, sure, as long as you put a link to my site on your site, to say where the pictures are from, quite polite. So I did. I put his pictures on toonlist.co.uk, and I got chatting to him on email, and he had a message board on 80s Nostalgia, so I joined that. I used it for about 2 years or so. I visited that site, and I became quite familiar with the people. I became a moderator on the message board, moderator in the chat room. I used the site myself quite a lot as a resource.
Right.
And in 2003, he shut the message board down. His name was Mark, I came to learn. He shut the message board down, so there was no chatting going on. So I put a message board on Toonlist, and I got a lot of the visitors who used to go to 80s Nostalgia come to my site, including the guy that ran 80s Nostalgia.
Right.
So I had him as a guest on mine, and we chatted every so often. And then back in June 2005, I got a direct message from him via my own message board saying, "Did you get my email?" I'm like, "No. What you sent me?" Curious whether it's some new thing, new content, whatever.
Yeah.
And he sent a message. He just said, "I'm going to move to Singapore. Do you want my website?"
What?
So I'm like, "How much do you want for it?" It's obviously very popular. It's obviously got a lot of content. It's very busy.
Yes.
How much do you want for it? And his email says something like, "As long as you take one of your kids out by moonlight and sacrifice them on a certain day." And I was like, "No, that's not going to happen." So, "No, I'm just kidding. It's yours if you want it." So I got given this popular website about 11 years now. I've had it for, and it's the first. I've never even met this Mark. Still never met him to this day. This Mark who owned the original one, because he actually does live in Singapore. I'm friends on Facebook with him, but
Right.
It's bizarre that he gave me something that was so that I visited so often. It was just bizarre circumstances.
That is really cool, man. I mean, for the listeners, we're talking about even the Twitter site itself has 21.9 thousand followers. I mean, is that the kind of followers that had originally before you even took it over, Craig, or is that kind of come on ever since you've kind of took it over as well?
I started the Twitter feed, I think, in 2009, after I've had maybe 2011, maybe.
Right.
I had the site for a few years, and the Facebook group, I think, was 2008.
Nice. So you built them followers yourself?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I've actually owned the site longer than the original owner owned it now.
Very cool.
So I thought it's about time it expands. It becomes, in a way, ironically, it needs to stop living in the past, and it's got its own, new media feeds.
So do you remember when you first kind of made with the website your own, and what was the kind of first content that you brought to the table?
I put on reviews of the Adventure Game, which is that game where you, from the late 70s, early 80s, where celebrities or minor celebrities would go and do a basic version of the Crystal Maze. They try and solve puzzles and get across a vortex at the end.
Yes.
That was one of the reviews that was lacking on that site that I thought needed to be on there. Other people have suggested added other content, like one of my colleagues had the Juliet Bravo review, Hong Kong Food's gone. There's quite a few other new reviews that have gone on there, and one of the agreements that Mark had was I can take over the site as long as I don't get rid of his original content, because he's quite proud of what was already on there.
Yeah.
Everything that he'd written originally is still on there, just with extra content as well. I've added to it since.
That's really cool. So, Craig, what is, in your opinion, like some of the most popular kind of TV shows that people want to discuss on your site?
Oh, things like Bagpuss and Bod.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
It's a lot of these stop motion things, so Bagpuss and Clangers. I know that Clangers is pre-80s, but it's shown during the 80s as well, and they get a lot of. If you mention anything to do with Bagpuss online, you get hundreds of replies.
That's cool, because I know that the Clangers has kind of had a resurgence, hasn't it? As like a new series as well, so I guess there's a lot of interest from it.
Yeah, you do get, and things like Danger Mouse as well had a recent remake.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's good that I like that they're bringing back things that were popular at the time.
Yes.
Adding that new twist to them, because it brings them to a new audience, and that new audience then gets interested in the history of it. So you get
exactly
new memories. Yeah.
You also got, like, obviously the parents grew up with it, and they're going to tell their kids about the old school stuff, just like you said, Yeah,
they're going to dig the videos out of the attic and show them what it used to be like. Yeah.
I do that myself. I'm always like a pro advocate for all the old school, even things like Postman Pat. I have to mention the original series.
Yeah, I've seen a picture of Bob the Builder. I think I know he's not 80s anyway, but they just revamped him, and I think he's still quite modern. Why would you revamp something that's maybe a decade old? I understand the Clangers, because that's like 60s, 70s.
So talking about 80s cartoons, what are your personal favourites? What are the ones that kind of bring you to the table in as far as your favourites go?
Well, I own quite a lot of animation cells used in cartoons.
Right.
I'm quite a big fan of the real Ghostbusters.
Nice.
Quite a few animation cells from them. Who else? I like Inspector Gadget.
Oh yeah, classic.
Can't beat that.
You can't. even the I think the movies itself are pretty bad, but I had some good points to it. I mean, it had the main references to the cartoon, but I think you can never beat the cartoon there. Definitely.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's the right length as well. Kids have got an attention span of about 20 minutes. An Inspector Gadget cartoon just is all you need.
What are your kind of main memories as a kid for you personally? What was the ones that caught your eye?
Cartoon-wise or anything? Cartoon-wise, my mate Oliver at school got me into Real Ghostbusters. So he had a copy of, I think it was Lookin' or something, some sort of smash hits thing.
Right.
And they did a feature on the upcoming Real Ghostbusters cartoon. He was fixated for weeks beforehand before it even came on. Things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well.
Yes.
When it's called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles because they couldn't use the word ninja.
That's right.
In the UK, it's bizarre.
So I know I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you something about. I used to watch a cartoon when I was a kid called Dungeons and Dragons. Now, from what I've been reading online, there was no kind of official ending to that cartoon. Is that true?
Well, I did research into it about a decade ago, and the guy that wrote the episode wrote a finale episode that never got recorded.
Right.
And it was, I can't remember what happened, and it was about a decade ago, but the kids got, I know there's one episode definitely where they got back from the ride, they got back into real life.
Yeah.
And Vengo was still, was loose in real life, so they had to get him back into the ride again.
Yeah.
To save the Earth and get it all fixed again. But I don't know if there's an official, that was the actual end or not.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge cartoon for me when I was a kid. I loved Dungeons and Dragons, Turtles. I also see Roland Rat, another character from my childhood there that is a pretty big part of it. I remember Roland Rat.
He was huge, yeah. He's a friend on Twitter, actually, and I got to interview him a few years ago, and it's one of the most bizarre interviews, because you're interviewing someone's hand, in effect. It's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah. How about things like Hong Kong Phooey, and obviously Batfink is another one from the blast from the past as well.
Yeah, I used to watch Batfink about 7 a.m.
Yes.
It was brilliant.
Brilliant cartoons. I also remember things like Rainbow with obviously Zippy and Fred and all the crew.
Yeah, Rod, Jen and Fred. I used to work with a guy who said that his uncle was Freddy from Rod, Jane and Freddy.
Right.
And I was like, well, can we meet him? Can we bring him in? He's like, no, he's my uncle. You know, it's one of those claims that he could make but couldn't back up that people tended to make. You know, it's like one of those weird claims that people, you know, no proof for it.
So if people clicked on to 80snostalgia.com, just run us through for the listeners. Just tell us about some of the categories and things that they can click on and what they can get involved in.
Right. There is a big section for TV, which is the original section that Mark wrote with another 10, 15 things I added on as well.
Yeah.
Things like cartoons, things like normal shows, the Tomorrow People, tripods, you know, real action things as well. There's a section for adverts, because I'm quite a huge fan of 80s adverts.
Yeah,
so
we've got to discuss those.
Oh, good. Things like the Ready Breck, like that orange glow you get around the edge of you, and Sugar Puff with Henry McGee. There's a section where you can play Spectrum games online. I think it's got 50 games. There's Your Sinclair did a chart years ago. It was the top 50 games as voted by Your Sinclair readers. So I've got the top 50 games. You can just click on any of the game lists. It'll play them live on your browser without having to download anything. There's an interview section. Interview people like Gaz Top and Violet Berlin.
Nice.
Roland Rat's in there as well, Tim Vine. and some musicians as well. We've got Mark King from Level 42 who was kind enough to take part in an interview recently. We do have a few interviews lined up that I've not had back yet, so I can't say too much. But there should be another couple of weeks, another couple of interviews hitting the site as well.
Very cool.
There's also an 80s dictionary as well, so if you're unfamiliar with 80s terminology, you can have a look through that, and it'll give you reference words that you might want to slip into conversation if you want to look particularly 80s. Yeah, it's quite a big area, really.
I see you got like a store as well. That looks pretty cool with T-shirts and stuff on.
I do. It's something I set up just to see if it'd work.
Right.
It's got logos from my website that people have actually bought that I'm amazed at. I don't know why. I don't know why anyone except for me would want to an 80snostalgia.com logo T-shirt, but people have bought them, so that's quite cool.
That's really cool. If you guys want to check it out, it is 80snostalgia.com. There's a lot of Feed Me Seymour references in there. Ghostbusters. There is no Dana, only Zool.
You're tuned into Monday Night Carlo, the sports pop culture podcast, available on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher Radio. So why not hit that subscribe button now? Monday Night Carlo, where pop culture fun lives.
What do you think when you see movies like Ghostbusters getting rebooted, Craig? What do you feel to that?
Initially, it's horrified because it's something that I watched. I went to the opening night of Ghostbusters as a birthday treat for myself when I was, I think, primary school. I would have been about 8 or 9 or so.
Nice.
And I remember my mate David was petrified at that library ghost scene.
Yes.
For a 9-year-old, 10-year-old child, it was just horrifying.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
It is, yeah, but it is a brilliant film. And when you hear about a new version of something coming out, initially you get that skepticism and you think it can't be as good as the original. I did go on to Twitter and say I don't think it's going to be as good. I wasn't nasty towards it, but my opinion is I don't think it will be as good as the original.
I think the thing is, Craig, as well, it's quite clever in a way because A, you can never replace the original anyway, and B, if anything, it's just going to raise awareness on people that haven't seen. Maybe there's a lot of kids out there that haven't seen the original, and just like with your cartoon website, there's going to be a whole new generation of fans that are going to go back and look upon it.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it does open it up to a new audience. It's good in a way. I am looking forward to it. I've seen one of the sneak trailer. It's just they do like a preview thing. It doesn't actually show you anything about it, and it's only like a 10-second, 15-second clip and a lot of text.
That's right.
It does look quite good, even just from that brief snippet that you see. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it much, but I am turning towards looking forward to it.
That's the thing. I mean, I'm exactly the same boat as you, Craig. I think that on the surface of it, when I first heard about the film coming out, I kind of really hated the thought of it. It wasn't anything to do with kind of the all-women cast or anything like that. It was to do with the fact of them remaking the film in the first place. I really didn't like that feel of that. Yeah,
it's a bit of swings and roundabouts. There's see pros and cons for it, really.
Yeah. So talking of films, what are the 80s films that are on your website? And for you personally, that kind of hit a note with you, apart from Ghostbusters?
Well, I've only just set up recently the film section. I've asked people to submit reviews, and I got quite a huge review for Back to the Future, because it is quite an iconic, huge film, yeah.
That's one of my very, very favourite films. Jaws and Jaws and Back to the Future are my favourite films of all time.
Yeah, they are superb. I think there's Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes,
that I could watch endlessly.
And I also see you notice Ferris Bueller, because I love that movie as well. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, I didn't watch that at all during the 80s or 90s. I only started. The first time I ever saw it was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Really?
On Channel 5, or some sort of bizarre small channel.
Yeah.
And I watched it because it was on, and because I heard a lot of talk about it, but I knew nothing other than a lad decided not to go to school. That's all I knew about it, and I watched it. And and it was all right.
That is really good. That's one of their movies as well, kind of like Back to the Future, where you come away kind of quoting some of the lines from the movie, or they're memorable to you. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's not one of those that's got like a fairy tale ending. It's quite a real sort of gritty,
Yes.
mystery thing. Yeah.
Obviously, another movie from the 80s that we've got to discuss is Labyrinth, with the sad passing of Mr. David Bowie. But
Oh yeah.
what do you think to Labyrinth?
I think it's a fabulous film. I think Dark Crystal and Labyrinth are two
Yes.
very underrated films. I know that Asda, a bit of a plug for Asda at the minute, but they're doing both films on one DVD for $5 at the minute, both special editions
Nice.
of The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. And Labyrinth is superb.
Dark Crystal was an awesome film. I remember watching that as a kid, being actually scared by it, because that was actually really dark as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And the Skeksis are not exactly the most child-friendly thing to look at. They're like a decomposing vulture. They're a bit of a scary sight.
For a Jim Henson movie, that is really dark, considering that it's like Muppet creators and stuff, you know?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So another movie that I saw on your website that I need to mention that not a lot of my friends remember is Garbage Pail Kids. Now, how did you come across Garbage Pail Kids, and what do you remember from this film?
Yeah, my wife had a lot of trading cards, Garbage Pail Kids trading.
Yes.
And I know that Amazon sell the film for about £4.50, £5 or so.
Right.
And it was a weird film from memory, that one. I don't remember much about the plot, but I remember thinking these dolls are a bit creepy.
That was a weird movie. There's another really cool section in your website, which is toys and games. Obviously, you talk about your 80s games playing as a kid, but that's funny because I look down the list and I see Etch-a-Sketch on this list. That's a bit of a classic.
Oh yeah, I know it was it was late 70s, I think, Etch-a-Sketch, but it's something that I had in about 1982. And I never really mastered it. I could only ever do like a 3-sided box, and then I'd turn one of the knobs the wrong way and go down rather than up. So you get like a question mark shape. I think it's fascinating to think that you're able to give that to anyone, and anyone can make a design on it. Do you know what I mean? You need no talent to use it other than a grip.
What is your games that you remember from childhood the most?
The Tomitronic 3D one, where you put it up to your eyes and you have
Yes.
It was called Thundering Turbos. It's a white one, and I got that for Christmas one time, and I remember it was genuinely 3D because you had two different eye holes and had slightly different images in both. So you got that depth perception where you could actually make things out in the distance. I remember being the height of technology that, because it was so bright and so vivid and loud. It was a brilliant toy.
I always remember the tabletop games, things like Mousetrap and Screwball Scramble, things like that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've still got that. Yeah.
So talking of going back to 80s TV shows, there's a massive list on this website, on the Classic TV website. What is the kind of even live action things like A-Team, and what is your kind of fondest memories of those?
Oh, A-Team. Things like Knight Rider. There are two main things I used to watch: Knight Rider and the A-Team.
Yes.
And they, for me, epitomise 80s TV. The games we played in the playground based on these two series that went on for weeks, where one of us would pretend to be Hannibal, one would be BA, one would be Face.
Yes.
And you go out and, primary school, have your first playtime. You go out and play for a bit. You've been like reenact an A-Team thing, go back and do some lessons. Come back after dinner and just carry on the same game with no actual defined plot. But you just carry on being the A-Team for like another day. It was so inspirational.
Of course, one of the most famous UK TV series of all time, I guess, growing up when I was a kid, definitely Grange Hill. Another one that's massive at the time.
Yeah. Grange Hill was one of those ones that I didn't get into until maybe the late 80s. Just as Zamo was leading.
Yeah, that was huge.
I was quite scared of Zamo. I was quite scared of him because he looked a bit like my mate Michael at school, and I didn't really get on with Michael much.
Oh, and I just remembered another one that I wanted to ask you about that I absolutely adored when I was a bit older, maybe, but that was Nightmare. Do you remember Nightmare?
Yeah. Yes. Love Nightmare. I met the guy who did the backgrounds for Nightmare a few years ago, David Rowe.
Nice.
And he was at some sort of Comic-Con. Can't remember which one though, but I met him. I bought a print from him, and he did all the artwork for all the different rooms in Nightmare. So he knew. Obviously, it was all blue screen or green screen, but he got to see the layouts of the room. They had to design his artwork around these lumps of blue that were on that make up the podiums for the things he'd drawn.
Yeah.
Such a genius artist.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
So another thing I noticed, looking down the list from A to Z, was Terrahawks, because I know that kind of my family and my dad grew up with, obviously, Thunderbirds, but I grew up with Terrahawks. Can you remember much about those, Craig?
Zelda was one of the scariest things. One of those proper face-hiding, scary things. And those little, I forget what they're called, but I think they're terraspheres, aren't they?
Yeah, there's like round, there's like cubes and balls, weren't there, basically?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, I remember them. I don't remember the actual characters other than Zelda and the balls and cubes.
Yes.
But I think Zelda was enough to ingrain that particular series in my memory quite firmly.
So before we move away from the TV shows, I need to ask you about, well, an absolute classic, Wacky Races, of course. Dick Dastardly. How about that one? That
was. I always have trouble remembering the names of the cars, but I know they used to do a run through, and like Penelope Pitstop was in there, and Chugaboom with the cartoon equivalent of the Keystone Cops.
That's right. Yeah,
fascinating and that actually came to an end as well. I had an actual end episode where the race was finished.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that until a few years ago, and I found it on a DVD.
I think another fact I found out was, I think that might have been the very first episode, but I always wondered if Dick Dastardly won a race, and he won the very first episode, I think.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he actually won the very first one.
Wow.
Bit of nostalgia I found out the other day.
I'm surprised, but pleased for him.
So let's talk about your book, because I looked online at the book. Craig does a book called 500 Billion Stupid Emails, Volume 1, and it looks pretty cool. Tell us a bit about what the book entails, Craig.
It was basically the way my mind works is that I find something that I would like to be asked myself. Like if I worked at Bachelor's, for example, and someone and I made cuppa soup as an example, I'd like someone to write in and ask me what the A in cuppa soup stands for.
Right.
So, and that's something that I did. I emailed Bachelor's and I said, what does the A in cuppa soup stand for? And I put, before you answer, I know it's a letter A, so it's got to be an A word. So maybe it's something like appertaining to, like a cup appertaining to soup, or it's a cup a la soup. So, it's soup you put in a cup. And I gave a few different words that start with A,
right,
that could be the middle word between cup and soup. And they just wrote back and said, it stands for of. And so I wrote back again. I'm like, it can't stand for of, it's an A word. What have you got an A word in there for? And I got an email back, and the lady said, well, maybe it could stand for such a thing. And I'm like, as if she was suggesting to me that I could name this word. So it doesn't make any sense. Well, you're Bachelors, you should know what this word is. And it just bothered me that, this company makes something but doesn't know what its actual name means. And it's just a book of my frustrations writing to places and getting replies from them, and how that conversation goes, between the two of us.
That's really cool. I saw one was, is a single M&M called an M?
Yeah. I put that part of that one, I put a message on the official M&M's Facebook group.
Right.
And I put a picture on explaining how M&M's, they only have one M on them.
Yeah.
And I put, is it just called an M? And I got a reply back from someone on the group that just said, lol. I'm like, what kind of reply is that? You're M&M, you should know what your sweets are called.
So another thing that I looked into was that you're part of the crew of Bolton FM. So tell us a bit about working for Bolton FM.
Yeah, Kev Gurney runs an 80s radio show every Saturday between 6 and 10. So it's online. It's on a normal radio if you're in the Bolton or Northwest area. You can get it on normal FM radio.
Yeah.
If not, you can get it online. You get it on TuneIn. You get it on the Bolton FM app. And yeah, I go into that every so often. We interview every time there's some sort of music festival, like there's one coming up, the Rewind coming up very shortly in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Kev gets a few of the artists on the phone. We interview them. It's not a regular thing that I do. I go in maybe every 2 or 3 months or so. And Kev works there all the time doing his show. I'm just a guest on there. And we just chat to famous people like Nick Kershaw, Sonia, Rick Astley's been on there. Owen Paul's on there quite a lot. My favourite waste of time.
Nice.
He's got a lot of 80s guests on there coming in for a chat.
That is really cool, man. So
Yeah.
I need to contribute. I noticed on your website you can contribute to more cartoons on your website, on your classic TV. Just me and my brain needs to contribute to your website, because you got one missing. You got one missing from my childhood that I just remembered, called Brave Star. That needs to go on your list.
Yeah, like a space cowboy sort of guy. Yeah, he was great.
That was awesome.
You're very welcome to add that on, yeah.
Greg, it's been really nice talking to you, man. I very much appreciate you coming on the show tonight, so thank you so much. Thank
you very much for having me.
That has been Craig Anderson. I've been Carl Leggett, and you have been listening to Monday Night Carlo. Why not come and like the official Monday Night Carlo Facebook page, facebook.com/MNC podcast. You don't see the writing on the wall. Passing by, moving straight ahead, and knew it all.
You've been listening to MNC. All views and opinions expressed by Carlo are all his own and do not represent any other entity.
You know you can quit until it's won.